Okay. So today we will look over the how we can transfer, means how we can share the data between one component to another component. Suppose that we have multiple components. Okay. And suppose just imagine we have component. There is notepad. Input and output. Input and output. So what is the use of this input and output? So suppose that we have to transfer data, means this is one component and this is another component. Okay. Consider this component is as parent. There is no any signification, means we can't put anything like parent or child. No, just we are imagine that this is parent component. Yeah. So this is parent component and another one is child component. Just 1 second. Okay. So this is parent component and another one is the child component. Now, what happened actually? Suppose we want to transfer data. Suppose we want to transfer data from parent component to child component. Means something we are doing on this component. Okay. And this data we want to transfer on the child one. Means suppose that here we had written on parent like I am. Just a simple example we are taking. Suppose we getting some data here, like I am parent, and this data we wanted to transfer on child. Means this data I wanted to print on the child one. What we have to do? So we will write the same line of code here. I am parent. Correct? Whatever data is there on the parent, we have to write same thing on the child. But this is not correct way, because what we are doing, we are communicating. We are we had written that code. We getting the data on one component, and same data we are transferring or we are passing to another component. That is known as the component communication. Okay. So now, and suppose that some data we had written on the this child component, like suppose we writing some message here, I am child. Okay. And this child, I am child, this I want to print somewhere on some other component. Okay. So suppose this become parent. So on parent component, I want to pass this data, I am child. So what we will do, we will again write that, but that's again not the correct way. So what we have to do, we have to transfer the data from this component to this component, and we have to transfer data from this component to this component, and this is known as the component communication. Okay, means what is happening? We getting some data. Suppose we getting some data from the API itself. So suppose we got the data on the parent component, and after something means we want the same data on our child component also. So what we have to do? We have to transfer the data from parent component to child component. Means we will do some activity on the parent, and that data, whatever data we getting on the parent, that will get a transfer on the child component. And the ways which by which we can transfer the data to parent to the child, there are different ways for transferring. Out of that, input and output is the another one important properties in that we can transfer the data. So write down the heading and just draw this diagram, then we will write. Note down and write this. Completed. Once done, just let me know. Done. Completed or still you writing?
Yes, sir, complete.
Okay. Give the heading. Just 1 second. Yeah. Now write down. It is a wage. It is, sorry, just strike that wage. It is used for, it is used for, it is used for build communication, build, BUILD. It is used for build communication. It is used for build communication between, it is used for build communication between parent and child. It is used for building communication between the parent and child component. Write down next line. Input property. Give the heading input one, input decorator. You can give that input decorator. Yeah, write down that in input. We can tell like input property also, decorator also. That's fine. So input decorator, input decorator, input decorator is used. Input decorator is used within. Input decorator is used within within one component, one component, one component, right, within bracket child component, within bracket child component, child component. Next, two, TO2, to to receive a value, to receive a value, receive a value from another component, from another component within bracket parent component, within bracket parent component. So what we had written here, input property is used, means input decorator is used within one component to receive a value from the another component. Means what we are doing in input side, we will receive the data from one component to another component. Means which component will behave like a child or parent, we will see that. Okay, but what we are doing, we don't know that which is child or which is parent, but what we are doing, we are receiving the data from the another component. So just imagine regarding this one, this child one, what it doing, it receiving the data, correct or not? This child one, it receiving the data from the parent one, correct? Means this parent is giving the data to the child. But if we will look on this direction, then what we are observing, that a parent is receiving data from which one? Child one. Means here for namesake we had given this parent and child. Nothing there for right now. We can't tell that this is child or this is parent. How this will behave like a parent or how another component will behave like a child, that we have to decide. Okay, but just by namesake we can't tell. So what we will do? So next, write some hint there. Note one. Just write something. Note one. When 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 data transfer, when data will transfer, when data will transfer, when data will transfer from from parent to child, when data will transfer from parent to child. One second. Yeah, okay, fine. When data will transfer from parent to child, within bracket, write that I writing here. When data will transfer, maybe a spelling mistake, ignore that. Transfer from parent to child, child, but it will be, in this case, we will use, write that, we will use at the rate input, at the rate input. This is the main thing. When data will transfer from parent to child, we will use input. Okay. Now what happened actually? From where the data is transferring? Data is transferring from parent to child. So this is known as the input. Now the opposite of this one. Second will be opposite of this one. So when just imagine, just listen. When data will transfer from right now, what is that? Parent to child. Now we will convert that child to parent. Then in that case, what we will use? We will use at the rate output. Got it? We will reverse that. Here we had written parent to child. This will go on to reverse child to parent, and this will be as a output. Note down. Second, output means note 1 you had written, write that note 2. When data will transfer, when data will transfer, when data will transfer from child to parent, child to parent, child to parent, we will use at the rate output. We will use at the rate output. Written, we will use
Yes.
at the rate output. Clear? So now see, just imagine in the real life this one. So whatever we had written, just make one box. See, this is actually very easy, but main thing actually this is very confusing. While interview, you itself will get confused that whether it is input or whether we will use output. Main matter is on that itself, at the rate input or at the rate output. If you understand that one clearly, if you got during interview also, it's everything clear. Nothing is there in this. Just at the rate input, at the rate output. That's it. So suppose that consider this as a parent. And now just see. Now tell me, what is this one? Data is transferring from where? Parent to child. What we will take now? Input or output? At the rate input. Correct? Yes. Now take another arrow. Now data is transferring from where? Child to parent. Means now if you will speak in other language, then you can tell that parent is going to receive the data. Then what we will take? At the rate output. Got it? Now still you will get confused. Now just go in the real scenario. What is going here in this first case? Parent is giving you money, correct? In first scenario, parent is giving you the amount, okay? And the child is receiving that amount. Means for now current situation, suppose you are not employed, you are not in job. What you are doing? You are taking the amount from the parent. What is that? That will act like a input, because parents is giving you the amount that become the input. Suppose after some time when you become earning person, okay, so you start earning. So in that situation, what you will do? You will give amount to your parents, okay? You start giving the money to your parents, so that become the output, because right now your parents is investing on you in your study, in your different things. After some time when you started earning, means after that what you doing? You returning them, means you are start giving some amount, correct? So that become the output. As like if we will look over the nature, okay? Suppose just consider one tree, mango tree. What we are doing when the mango tree is small, okay, we are just giving water, different fertilizers, different things we are providing. Means we are providing the input. Okay, and after some time, when it start giving the fruits, what it giving the output. So that the same scenario is going here. So in interview, suppose if you forget, just keep in mind this scenario, that now if you are not in job, the parents is giving the amount, that become the input for your parents, they investing on you. Okay, and after some time, when you become in the job, you will start returning the amount, you will start giving the amount to your parents. So that become the output for your side, because still your parent had giving you, but after some time you will start giving the amount to your parents. So that become the output. Clear? So in that case, when you will start giving amount to your parents, in that case, what we will take? We will take at the rate output, because you now act as a output. You start giving the amount. But suppose now your parents is giving the amount. So what we will take? We will take at the rate output. Clear? Or any confusion in this? Any doubt? No. Okay. So see, now came to this situation. Suppose on this component, it is written I am a parent. Okay, and suppose this data I want on which one? Here on the child. Means now just imagine who have that data. I am parent. Parent have, means just consider this component as a parent component. So parent have this one, means now what we have to do? We have to move this I am a parent. We have to pass this on this component. Means what happened? Data is on this component. We have to pass here. Means we are transferring one. Just consider this as a this as a parent. So we have to transfer this data to here. Means parent to child. So we have to use this input. Suppose from here you getting some data, this become the output. Okay, now we will see the real example. Just wait. So the theory wise, that's it, nothing is there. Now we will look over the practical. Anything more is there? Let me check. Mhm. No, nothing is there. Okay, fine. Let's now create some component. So see, I will explain through the code first, then we will create. So what we doing here, just open app component.html. Inside that, we will keep an instance of the student component. Means we going to keep the selector of which one? A student component. Means on this image, what you observing? One selector is there in the bottom. Means the selector is there. So, and on the top, what is this? Just we had written I am parent, like that. Let me create that component. It will be good. Do one thing. I giving you this website link. Just side by side, you can also create the component. Just create. Everything is written there. In this topic, that's it. Nothing is there. Remaining, you will get when you will create the component. G for generate, C for component, and student. Student. Any component is there with a student? No. Fine. There it is. for component student. Anyone has created the component?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me comment this. For right now, we will do on this app component itself. We can get that point. So what is this one? This is app component. And here what we have to do? We have to just write some sample message. Okay. Consider this as a parent. App component as a parent. I am parent. Now, what we will do? We had created the component a student. Where is that? A student. We will take the selector of a student. Now just look over the browser. Okay. So here we got a student works. Okay. After this a student works, what we will do? We already passed this selector on our component. Means which component? Just be considering this component as app component, and on this we had passed the selector. Next, in the above image, we selected that area of the child component. Now just pass some data. There is that app component. App component. Just pass some message here. What message they are taking? Take this one. Oh, sorry. I written inside this one. Okay. So what we have taken? We taken some message. I am the parent component. Now what we have to do? We want this data to print on the child component. So now we will take, suppose what we are doing on the parent component, we had written some message. This message, I am the parent component, and this I wanted to print on the which one? Child component, another component. So what we have to do? We have to pass this message on the child component, and we will take which means say that which decorator. Suppose data is transferring from the parent to child. This considered as a parent, and we are transferring from parent to child. Which decorator we will take?
At the rate input.
At the rate input. So now come to the child. So which one will be child? So child will be this selector part, means app student. So this app student will be our child. Now come to the student section. So sorry. Yeah. So this will consider as the your child component. What we will do? We will take at the rate input. And once we return this at the rate input, you will get import here. Okay. Once you will write this one, it will get automatic import this at the rate input. And in this at the rate input, now see what we doing. So at the rate input is a property. That's why we're telling either we can take decorator and property both. It's not an issue because decorator, because at the rate symbol is there. That's why. Second thing, what we will do. So whatever message, whatever variable we had created component, app component. What is the variable? My input message. Take this message and pass with the at the rate input decorator here. Okay. So whatever message is available on our child parent component from where the data is available. So from there, be transferring the data on our child component means a student component, and we are just giving that type like a string or this that. That's not an issue. Okay. Now just see what happened. So what actually we had done. So we had taken one app component, and on app component.html we had taken just a HTML tag, that's it. But main thing is this selector. This selector we had written of which one selector? That's a child selector. Be considering this as a child component, and child component be passing on the parent component. Why be taking this as a parent or child? We will discuss that. For right now, just ignore. So what we had done, we taken one component selector, we passed on one component on HTML. Now move to this component TS page. So on this TS page, app component.ts, what we had done, we had written one message. Nothing is there on this page. We had written just one message. Now on second component, which component? Child component means app student. On this component, we will start working. So what we had done on this app component, we had taken at the rate input. Okay. And next, what we had done, we had taken this my input message means it is coming from where? App component means considered as a parent component. So on parent, my input message, and this message is coming on the a student component. Means now the data is available on the parent one and it is moving on the child one. So just imagine we had taken this variable my input message, and what variable we had written there? My input message. Both are changed or same? Yeah, it's same. No issue. So now what we want? We want to load, we want to print this data on our component. So our component means a student component. Just pass here this variable. And let's see whether we getting something or not. Then we will see later. So what happened? What we had written that message? I am parent component or something we had written on TS page. So we had written one message, I am the parent component. We are getting this one or not? No. I am parent we are getting, but where is parent component? This parent component. This message have to transfer, but that is not coming. Wait, let me change this. We will write just parent and write a student as child. So what happened? We not get the data like I am parent or yeah. So that data. So just imagine, make some connection, and just you can observe something we had not done. So from where data is available? Data is available on the parent, this app component. On app component, we had written one selector. Correct. We had written one selector. But from this selector, what we are doing, look over the TS page. So app component dot TS, what we had done? We had written just one message. Nothing is there. Okay. Now come to the student, means here we taking one selector. So when we taking the selector means a data I want to print on our component. When we passing the selector on some component, it means that data will get load on our component. It will not pass the data to other component. It will load on our component itself. So what we done, we had taken the data on our app component. That's okay. Means there is no any process of transferring the data up to here. Then on, yeah. So now look over the app component.ts. Here, what we had done, we had just passed the data, and even who will take this data? We had not told anyone to take this data. We had not made any connection. So how this will get means moved from one part to another part? It's not possible. Correct? So next, what we will do, and next what we had done. Now we will look over the student component, because our motto is to print the data on this app student component. But we had written this interceptor here. Sorry, interpolation. We had written, and we had written on a student component one input decorator. We had written at the rate input. But now just imagine if we had written this at the rate input, had we passed any data via this message, we had make any connection. So you can observe from app component that we had not made anything. We had taken that selector. We had passed here, but how that data, which is available on our TypeScript page, this message, how this will get transfer, because we are not doing anything. So what we will do, we will take this message variable and we will pass in our selector here. Okay. This way we have to pass that data. Then only the data will available on the our component where I want to receive. Now look over the next line of code. So now you can observe in the app selector, a student selector, what we are doing, we are writing one property binding. So now we will pass one property binding here, equal to, let it to be something. So now just imagine who will take the data. Now just consider who will take data. So what variable we had made here? My input message. Okay. And on a student component.ts, we had written my input MSG short form. But on app component.ts, we had written complete. So we will take this. This is your value. Okay. So value already we know that assignment operator from the JavaScript itself. Which side I can pass? Means suppose be writing x equal to 5. What means this? 5 is going to assign to x. 5 is the value. So now just tell me here which variable have value. This my input MSG or this one my input message. What are you considering? Which one is the value? So this one is the value, because my input message containing this complete sentence. Okay. So we will pass this which side? Tell me. We will write inside or outside. What are you observing? Which will be correct? Outside or inside?
outside.
Outside one. Because outside we know that assignment operator be passing the value. So this is not correct. Okay. So we will pass outside. Then what we will pass here? So on input decorator, go to a student component.ts. Here with at the rate input, we had written one variable. Take this variable, do one thing, rename this variable. What we can take, write some variable name, data from app component. Okay, something we will write like this. And now we will pass this variable on our app component inside the property binding. Got it? What we had done. Now let's look over the code, means look over. And one thing, in the student component, we have to change this also. Now just see this, whether we got the output or not. Had we got this data on the child component, I am the parent component. It's coming from your TypeScript page, means of the app component. Got it or not? What we had done, just I will go overview of this complete. Not only this one, just see. If to pass data from the input field, can anyone tell? Wait, let it to be. Wait. Zoom size. Oh my God.
Sir, one doubt, sir.
Yeah,
Sir, when we pass the selector any component,
yeah,
means all data came, not passing in
correct.
this input and output decorator. It will be all data come in browser. So, what
No,
is
no,
the difference?
actually, yeah. What is difference between? Complete that question.
Yeah, sir. What is difference in input and output decorator and only passing selector in any component?
Okay, okay, wait. So just we will keep this complete code in one means somewhere on one page. Then we can realize easily what is that what we had done. Just wait. Let me open one sheet. Because if you will observe this code, then you can easily get idea completely. So first we will go with the parent one. 1 second, let me take water. So just consider this as a parent component, and which is now right now our parent component as a app component. Okay. Now take the code from the app component, this complete code. Now remove this. That's it.
Right.
Now go to
Yeah.
another line. Yeah. Now take this app component dot ts. App component dot ts file.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, Roshan.
Am I audible?
Yeah. But your voice is
Sir,
breaking.
I got error. Yes, sir.
Okay. Let it to be. We will look that. Just let me clear this one. So what we had done, we taken this parent component, HTML, and then TS page. Now go to the another one, a student. Take this a student first. Means this we considering as the child component. Once you will get this complete code at one place, you will get easily what is going there. It's very simple. But if you will look over the name, you will imagine that it's very complicated. HTUDENT student component.html. That's fine. Now see, look over this complete code. What you observing? Just see. So see, why we telling any component as parent component? Means we have two component. One is app component and second is the student component on this both component. What are you getting the difference in both? I keeping that code below. Now tell me, why we considering this component as a parent component and why not a student as a parent component? Just observe the code in both. What you observing? Just
Sir,
use the mind.
yeah, sir,
Yeah.
because it's app component passing the child component selector in there. So
See,
that's the
yeah, that is the main thing. Selector. But we will not tell the child component selector because if we taking app component and a student component, both are same. There is no any parent or child, nothing is there. But we are making some component as a parent component or child component. So main thing, how we are making any component as parent component or child component. So how we are making parent component with the help of which one? By passing the selector. As you pass the selector, that particular component become the parent component. Is this clear? First point means when we passing selector of any component on some component, then that component become the parent component. Got it? Write down. We will write a
yes.
step by step. First write that we will create two component. We will create a step one. We will create a two component. We will create two component. One component as app component and second as a student component. One component as app component, second as a student component. We will create two component, one component as app component, second as the a student component. Clear up to here? Now a step two. Step two. Make a step two. Make any one component. Make any one component. Make any one component as parent component. Parent component. Parent component by passing or keeping. By passing, how we will make any component as parent component? By passing what? Selector of the other component. Okay, write down. We will make one component as parent component by passing the selector of the other component. By passing selector as selector of other component. If you want, you can write down this example. App component means don't write this parent component. Just first write app component. And on app component, we had written just 3 line of code. Okay. For right now, just ignore this one. Data or whatever is there. Ignore. Just write the selector app dash a student. That's it. App dash a student. Written. After writing this app dash a student, below you can write that as we had passed selector of student component, as we had passed selector of a student component on app component due to the selector what happened, app component become what, parent, become parent component or parent, you can anything. Is this clear or having any doubt, anyone? Any doubt, just let me.
No, sir.
Clear? Okay. So now what happened? We we don't know which component is your parent or which component is child, but we had converted one component as a parent. How we had converted? By keeping the selector. No need to write these all data or whatever data from the some component or this that, nothing. No need. So just write selector. So by keeping the selector of one component on other component, that component become act as a parent. Up to here clear. Now what we will do, now where is the data? So data is available on the parent component. Parent component in the sense parent component dot ts. Now look over the code. Now you can easily understand somewhat, because now you are in the clear step that which is known as the parent and which is child. So due to selector, on which component we will pass the selector, that will become as a parent. Okay. So now this become the parent. So now what we are doing, we are passing the data from the parent. Means suppose if we have to pass the data from the parent component, in the sense some data should be available there. Means on this component itself some data should be available. So now go to the typescript page. Which one? App component.ts, because this is your parent component. So on app component, what we had done, we had written one message like something, I am the parent component. Now your parent component task got 50% completed, because what we had done, we had kept the selector. Due to selector, this become the parent. From the parent we are passing the data. So we had created the data. We created the data here. Now this data I want to receive on the child component. So which is your child component? Which selector you had taken on the another component, that component become the child. Means a student component, we had taken the selector, so a student component become the child. So now what we will do, now come to the student component. So in a student component, what we done, first step, we have to import @input decorator. Write down that. Write down next step on app component.ts, because on app component we had kept the selector, it become parent. Now we will create the data on the typescript page. So write down on app component.ts within bracket parent component, on app component.ts within bracket parent component, keep the on app component.ts parent component, keep the data, keep the data, keep the data which we want to, keep the data which we want to, which we want to pass on the, which we want to pass on the, pass on the, which one, child component, child component, which we want to pass on the child component. So which data are we going to pass on the child component? This message, my input message. Okay. So now just imagine how this means still this data is available on your parent component and we have to pass on the child component. Means something we want. So how we will pass? So write down the next step. for receiving the data, for receiving the data, for receiving the data on, for receiving the data on a student component, for receiving the data on a student component within bracket child component, a student component within bracket child component, we will import, we will import, we will import, what we will import? For receiving the data, what we will import?
At the rate input decorator.
Yeah. So at the rate input decorator. Note down that. We will import at the rate input decorator. At the rate input decorator, and we will make one variable as well, and we will make one variable as well, and we will make one variable as well. Why we are making this variable? Now tell me. This variable, why we had make? Anyone?
On
Because
the fetching the
assign
data.
Roshan, yeah, tell.
For the fetching data on HTML page. That's all.
No,
For
not on
interpolation.
HTML page. No. Okay. You telling to fetch the data on via interpolation on HTML. But how you receive the data? Means you telling that you will display the data. That's fine. But had you got the data?
No.
Had you? No. Because just imagine here, had we done any activity that they will pass the data, just remove this line. Right now, we had just passed the selector and we had created this data. We had not done any activity so that this data will transfer on the child one. Clear? So what we
Yes.
had done, we had created one variable, means at the rate input decorator, and there we had passed one variable. Just note down, we passed one variable. What we had written actually there?
We will make one variable as well.
Okay. So we will make one variable as well to receive the data, to receive the data from where? From where we will receive the data? This
Child.
variable, no, not child, that
It's
parent.
a
parent
child.
sir.
Parent to
Parent?
child. No, sir.
Yeah, means from parent we will receive the data actually. No, we creating
Yeah,
this
yeah.
at the rate input on the child one. Correct? What we
Yes.
had told means your parents is giving you the amount now, so that become the input for you. Means your parent is giving, so child will act as a input. So same thing we are doing. This is your child component, and what we had written? We had written the at the rate input. Correct? Means child acting as a input. So that's why we are writing the at the rate input decorator. And how parent become the output? With the help of the selector. We return the selector, so it become the parent. Clear up to here? So what we had done, we created one variable for what purpose? For receiving the data from the parent component. Up to there, written. Now we want this data. Suppose we want this data on interpolation or in console. So what we can do? Which variable we will take? We will take this variable. Now write that. So if we want, next step, if we want, if we want, if we want to print data, if we want to print data, to print data in our console or UI, in our console or UI, or UI, we will use we will use we will use variable we will use variable which we will use variable which we had which we had written near which we had written near at the rate input decorator. Give that symbol at input and at the rate input decorator. So what we had done. So this variable, I want to print data on our UI. What we had done, we had taken this variable and we had passed in the interpolation. Clear? We had taken this data and we had passed in the interpolation here. See, same variable is this at the rate, sorry, data from component, whatever we had written, the same variable we had passed on the component that HTML page. Now up to here, what we had done, just to go starting. We had not gone through this line. For right now, just ignore. So what we had done, we taken the selector on the it means we taken the selector, and due to this selector, what happened? This component, app component, this component become the parent component because we taken the selector. Next, what we had done, we had taken this app component.ts, and on app component.ts, be passing the data. Be doing some activity and be passing the data, and this data we want on the student component. So what we doing on a student component, how any component become a student means, sorry, how any component become the child component? By passing which one?
Select.
No, selector means parent.
Yes, means passing the input.
Input,
Decorator.
input decorator. As you written at the rate input decorator, that component become the child, because child is only taking the amount from the parent. Means in the real scenario, we are taking the amount from the child means parent. It means input. Okay, so as you kept at the rate input decorator on some component, that component become the child. So now the child task is to receive the data. Means child task to receive the amount from the parent. How we will receive the amount? So for that we had created one variable. Now with the help of this variable, be receiving the data. Means now whatever you want to do with this data, you can perform. But still you had created parent, child, everything, but still your parent had not given the amount because you had not given your account number or anything. So what we doing? So for that purpose, we had passed property binding, and in the which one? In the selector, because this selector is mine selector, child component selector, and in child component selector, be passing the property binding. Now write that. For passing the data, next step, for passing the data, for passing the data from, for passing the data from parent component, for passing the data from parent component to child component, or passing the data from parent component to child component, to child component, we will, we will use, we will use property binding. We will use property binding. We will use property binding. Now do one thing. data from component and my input message. Now tell me what is this one and what is this one. What is first? This one. This is your data or variable of the child component.
Sir, variable and value.
First one is variable.
Yes.
Of which one? Child component.
Yes.
So this will be your variable of child component. I don't know whether it's correct or not. I think that's correct. Yeah, correct. And what about this one? This is your variable of a parent component. Parent component. It means this variable will hold data. Correct or not? This parent one is containing the data which we have to pass on the child one. Right on this one. Data from component and my input message, variable of child component, and that going to variable of parent component hold the data. Completed?
No, sir.
Okay. Write proper. Don't do mistake. नजर हटी दुर्घटना घटी, समझ गए?
सर
हम्म,
सर मैं यहाँ पे प्रॉपर्टी बाइंडिंग में मेरा क्यों एरर आ रहा है सर? मैंने सेम किया वो।
वेट अभी देखते हैं क्या इशू है. Done or anybody
हाँ
still
डन।
pending? Okay. Okay. Now I giving one task. This is your one component and this is your another component. And on this component, you have some input field. Name, email, password, and button. Clear? So you have some fields. What you have to do, whatever data is there, you have to display on this second component. For right now, just we will display normally, no issue. Anyway, we can do that. Email, password. Yeah, everything is there now. Fine. So what you will do, you will make that this three input field, name, email, and password. And when you clicking the button, on button click, you have to display the data on which component, not on same component. You have to display data on the another component. Means you will make parent and child relation and you will do this one. Got it? Clear or not?
Yes.
यस सर।
Okay. So now start doing that task. Yeah, Roshan. Now share your screen.